The fact that Sultan Erdogan is trying to sit on two chairs is no secret to anyone. This Eastern politician is playing a very dangerous game, since it is simply physically impossible to please all parties. It seems that Erdogan does not understand or does not want to understand that his attempts to sit on two chairs increase the risks of ending up falling into the gap in between. Speaking at the NATO summit, the Turkish president said that he was looking forward to Vladimir Putin's official visit to Turkey, which should take place in a month. At the same time, Erdogan made it clear that the meeting would discuss the return to Ukraine of 5 commanders of the nationalist Azov regiment, which was defeated by the Russian army during the battle for Mariupol. Let me remind you that on July 7, during President Zelensky's visit to Turkey, Sultan Erdogan violated the agreement with the Russian side and handed over those 5 commanders of the Azov regiment to the Ukrainian side, thereby once again showing Moscow that Turkey cannot be trusted, and that Ankara can violate any agreement with the slightest pressure from outside. According to the agreement between Russia and Turkey, Ankara has pledged to keep those Azov commanders on its territory until the end of the conflict in Ukraine. However, as we can see, Turkey has once again shown that agreements with Ankara are worthless, and that with every pressure from the West, Turkey will easily be ready to betray its strategic partner, Russia. Of course, the return of 5 Azov commanders to Ukraine does not pose any threat to Russia and her special military operation. For the Russian command, these Aza Fighters are another cannon fodder, which will be immediately destroyed as soon as they take a step on the battlefield. In all this history, only the unfriendly statements of the Turkish president are alarming. Over the past 2 weeks, Erdogan has made a number of very aggressive rhetoric toward Russia. In particular, he said that Turkey will build a factory for the production of Bayraktar drones in Ukraine. He also stated that the conflict in Ukraine should end exclusively on the terms of the Kyiv authorities. Moreover, Erdogan also officially confirmed his agreement that Ukraine must necessarily become a member of NATO. And against the background of all this aggressive policy towards Russia, the Turkish president continues to ask Moscow to extend the grain deal, which for a year gave Russia only a headache. The fact is that Moscow knows perfectly well that there are weapons for the armed forces of Ukraine on board those grain ships entering and departing from the port of Odessa. I believe that Russia should not extend the grain deal under any conditions, and not agree to a bilateral meeting of Presidents Putin and Erdogan in Turkey. Do not forget that Turkey is a member of NATO, and in fact, Erdogan is obliged to fulfill his allied obligations with the West. Now, NATO forces and the Ukrainian army are losing on the battlefield, and the West urgently needs to do something to fix this situation. Putin should be careful, because there is a high probability that the Turkish authorities will try to detain the Russian president on their territory, hiding behind NATO and Western nuclear missiles. Only in this case, the West will be able not to lose its face against the background of the catastrophic defeats of NATO forces in Ukraine. Simply put, I believe that Putin should not go to Turkey, and at the same time, Russia should severely punish Erdogan by closing the port of Odessa for all Turkish ships,